Welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Duval, today we're looking at Travis Etienne and some of the comments he made about his desired role with the Jaguars. Interviewed with Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports earlier this week at OTAs. We'll look at that. He's looking to be used like Deebo Samuel, 49ers offensive weapon. We'll dive into that right now. Football is all about matchups, Etienne told Jonathan Jones. So, if I could be like Deebo Samuel, I would love that. Honestly, the game is a game of productivity. If you can produce, the team is always going to have a need for you. I'm just trying to be the best player I can be so I can be on the field at all times. Really interesting stuff there. We'll dive into it. If you're a fan of the show, please like and subscribe on YouTube. We literally cannot do this without you guys. It means so much that you guys tune in and show love on these podcasts and videos. You can follow myself at Jordan DeLugo on Twitter and Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. So just to get it out of the way, yes, Travis Etienne is coming off the Liz Frank injury suffered last August, week 2 of the preseason. Yes, historically, that's one of the worst injuries an athlete can suffer, especially a running back. But with modern medicine, Etienne is already fully cleared for all football activities, and he's practicing fully with the Jaguars. I've seen him in person with my own 2 eyes. He looks good to go. He looks explosive. He looks quick. He looks fast. I don't think that worrying about the injury is really going to be productive at this point. Like, this is a guy who is fully healthy. When you look at, can Travis Etienne be the next Deebo Samuel or be like Deebo Samuel? Looking at his talent and skill set, from that perspective, I think that Travis Etienne does have the type of skills to be used as a Deebo Samuel type of weapon. What does that mean? Deebo Samuel is a guy who is a slash player. For Deebo, that means he's a wide receiver / running back. But for Etienne, who is primarily a running back, he'd be a running back / wide receiver. So from a money standpoint and pounding standpoint, Deebo and Travis, they got to look at that entirely differently. In terms of Deebo's going from wide receiver to wide receiver / running back. Wide receivers get paid a lot more than running backs, and they take less of a beating than running backs. But Etienne's going from running back, if Doug Peterson will use him in this type of role, from running back to running back / wide receiver. And Etienne talked about that. He said, well, we see it different because he's the receiver going to the backfield. I'm the running back going to receiver. For me, that's taking less pounding on my body. For him, that's putting more pounding on his. You've got to see it from his perspective. For me, it's totally fine because I get to get outside in space and just work against DBs, smaller guys, and I don't have to run between the tackles. Who wouldn't love that? So yeah, it is a different perspective because Deebo Samuel now is kind of pushing back against that role where he's lined up in the backfield a lot, getting carries because he does take more of a beating, and because if you're not looked at as a pure wide receiver, you're not going to make as much money, or at least that's the fear from Deebo Samuel's end. Can Etienne be a primary running back who aligns at times and finds success as a receiver? Absolutely. He dramatically improved his hands throughout his time at Clemson. When he was a freshman, he couldn't catch a cold. But it got to the point where over his last 2 seasons for the Tigers, he caught 87% of his targets, 85 catches over those final 2 seasons combined, and he did get some work in over those 2 years, lining up in the slot and out wide. Then you look at what he did once he got to Jacksonville in 2021, prior to his Liz Frank injury. He had all summer working with this team. Urban Meyer was planning on using him as, you guessed it, a slash player. The same exact terminology that you used to describe Deebo. He was aligning out wide in the slot, and in the backfield all last summer, and he looked damn good doing it. They were going to try to use him like Deebo, but guess what? Deebo is not the first guy to align in the backfield and outside at wide receiver and in the slot. He is the flavor of the week. I get it. Deebo is a stud. He's electric with the ball in his hands. But he's not the first guy that has found success, aligning in the backfield and at receiver. You look at Cordero Patterson has done that. Percy Harvin really, really put that kind of on the map going from wide receiver to running back. But prior to those guys, Marshall Faulk, Brian Westbrook, guys who were actually running backs contributing as receivers, they made huge impacts. And there's plenty of guys throughout NFL history who have had a role that's a slash role, where you're a running back slash receiver. And there's guys that have done it really well. Will Doug Peterson, Jaguars' new head coach and offensive play caller, will he see that potential and use him in that type of role? Well, he had Miles Sanders lining up out wide and in the slot already back in Philly. So I would say yes, he is willing to use running backs in that way. Sanders caught 50 passes during his first year with Doug Peterson in Philly and had over 100 targets in his 2 years combined under Doug Peterson with the Eagles. So yeah, Doug Peterson is willing to align his running backs at receiver. And honestly, from what I'm hearing out of camp and seeing, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of their offensive weapons lining up anywhere on the field at any time. These guys are being coached, taught, and trained to have versatility within this offense. So, can Travis Etienne be a Deebo Samuel type player, a slash player? Hell yeah, he can. I think folks put Deebo on a little bit of a pedestal, and again, I understand why. Unbelievable with the ball in his hands, making people miss, picking up chunk plays, and he's really developed into a damn good receiver as well, a really good route runner. Still needs to improve on his overall efficiency catching the ball, but Deebo is an unbelievable talent. And there, again, have been many offensive weapons with versatile roles throughout recent NFL history. I brought up Marshall Faulk, Brian Westbrook, Percy Harvin, Cordero Patterson. But all those guys, it takes a coach, a creative, and really a smart offensive coach. Deebo Samuel would not be where he is in his career without Kyle Shanahan, who has been scheming up that offense and really allowing his players to find space with the scheme, with the play calling. Now, Travis Etienne, in my opinion, has that in Doug Peterson. He is a creative play caller. He will use different alignments and move his guys around the field to create mismatches. I think they're really going to attack the seams vertically. I think they're going to attack horizontally around the line of scrimmage and within 0 to 10 yards at the line of scrimmage and just spread defenses out. Travis Etienne fits that perfectly. He's been training for this role for the last 2 years. You've seen him in OTAs this year, taking reps at receiver, running through receiver drills, catching the tennis balls. This is a guy that is very much training to be a versatile offensive weapon. And I see it being very beneficial for him and for the Jaguars if he's a guy who you can align at 3-4 different spots on this offense, and defenses aren't going to be prepared for his speed, his explosiveness, his contact balance. This is a guy, if you get him the ball in space, he is a load to bring down. Again, he led the ACC all time in touchdowns. Averaged over 7 yards per carry during his career at Clemson. Again, he caught 85 passes over his final 2 seasons there. So Etienne has the ability to do this. And what he has done since the last time we saw him in an actual football game is improved his receiving skill set even more. He's been getting work in at receiver this summer. Size, speed, skill set as a route runner and pass catcher. He only dropped, I believe, 4% of his targets over his final year at Clemson. Again, showed great improvement with his hands. I think he's going to have a major impact as a running back and receiver, whether that's out of the backfield in the slot or outside. I think he's going to do it all for the Jaguars this year. I do want to caution people from thinking this means he's going to have like a 50-50 role as running back slash receiver. That's not the case. And that's not the case with Deebo. Deebo still aligns primarily as a receiver, whether it be in the slot or out wide. Etienne is still going to primarily align as a running back, but you're going to see him, I believe, as a wide receiver and slot receiver as well. So, yeah, to answer the question, can Travis Etienne be an effective and versatile offensive weapon that can align in the backfield, out wide, and the slot, wherever you want him? Absolutely, and he can be extremely effective in that role. I think Travis Etienne is going to really, really open up the Jaguars' offense in a lot of ways. But that's going to do it. Thank you so much for tuning in, Duval. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube and check genjag.com for all the latest Jaguars news, analysis, and Duval gear.